So firstly, India Gate has built decades of equity in basmati rice. So I like entering a category like biryani masala is a whole different play, which has been, I think, launched around 2 or 3 months ago. So what was that consumer insight or market gap that convinced that a new launch is needed at this time, and this is the right extension for this brand?
Right. Antara, I think you're right when you mentioned that India Gate enjoys a very high equity in the basmati rice space. And as an organization, 95% of our revenues do come from basmati rice, right? And we
Yeah.
built this equity and trust and leadership in the market over the last 2.5 decades in the India market, right? Having said that, I think when we sat down to decide our growth agenda for the next decade, one of the things that definitely was a core part of our discussion was how do we extend into adjacencies, right? Because the brand is extremely strong. It's built on trust and legacy, which demonstrates potential to extend into a lot of other categories. So when we scan the landscape in terms of adjacencies and business opportunity, I think there was a logical space of extending into the biryani masalas space. And this value added masala space is an extremely growing category. Still quite urban, I would say, and even from a channel perspective, slightly more disposed towards the modern trade and e-commerce channels. I think there was potential there purely from the growth opportunity. Typically, the category is at a stage where, as more players come in, the category is also going to grow exponentially. The second piece that we really clearly identified for ourselves is how do we position what we do in this space as India Gate. I think as a brand, because of Basmati, because of our association with Source, I think authenticity is a promise that we decided to anchor ourselves onto. While the product delivers convenience, but the authenticity of the promise is what we decided to anchor ourselves on. Uh, so we launched our range of biryani masalas technically about 2 years back, right? What we have done now, because we have got good proof of concept and confidence that there is a scalable model in this space, is that we are moving a little bit further into an adjacency, which is ready to cook masalas. So a couple of months back, what we have launched is really a further extension of our biryani masalas into more ready to cook, authentic, masala space, right? So we've launched a chicken chettinad, a Kashmiri aloo dum, a Purani Delhi butter chicken. So we have a range of 4, 5 products that we've put out into the market because we really see this as a market growing. What's also happening, Antara, is that as consumers are moving away from their core nuclear family structure, you know, uh, consumers are looking out for products which deliver the authentic taste, right? And that's not something that they are able to recreate in the kitchens because of, moving away from the legacy places where they've grown up as kids. So I think the product format that we are putting out in the market is essentially solving for this consumer need gap. And hence we feel this has the potential to really scale up as we look forward. So that's how we actually landed up with biryani masalas and now the range of masalas that we are bringing under the fold of India Gate Classic.
But also because you're expanding in this masala category, in masalas there are categories that has already established, loyalty with the consumers. So from a marketing standpoint, how are you working on that to
Sure.
overcome that challenge? And because you spoke of early signs of success, if you can give us an idea of that.
So, Antara, if you look at the spices industry in India, it's a huge and growing market, right? One, obviously, there is the large unorganized sector, which is rapidly moving towards packaged spices. Uh, the second piece is that the spices market is also very well segmented into base spices or straight spices as they are known, which is your haldi, red chili powder, and so on and so forth, right? Which has a very high brand loyalty to the lady of the kitchen, because, and you'll see it's also very regional. So a leader in UP would be very different from a leader in Tamil Nadu in that space, right? Then there is the blended spices space, which is largely, the garam masalas and, the blended spices, which are not really straight in nature. That also has, if you will go into an Indian kitchen, you will see that different products have different brand loyalties in that. So that's the other space, which is also again rapidly expanding in the powder format, right? And the third part is essentially the value added spices space, which is technically, more for specific dishes, more where consumers are more experimentative in nature. And that kind of answers your question, that in this space where the market is growing very rapidly, where consumers are rapidly seeking value from brands in terms of the range of products that they're bringing, the kind of promise of taste, and there is less, I would say, a less of a trial barrier to these set of products. So that's the space where we are getting in as a brand right now, uh, uh, giving the promise of the expertise of India Gate and the trust that we bring and the promise of authentic taste with the products that we are bringing to the table. And I think in this kind of a category where trial is not so difficult, the product and the experience that we are able to land to the consumer is going to play an important role in our success in this category. So we are working very strongly and in terms of investing in developing great products, and also to listen to consumers and identify consumer need spaces of what are they seeking. So when we got into this category, inherently you may think that something like a Chettinad chicken typically would sell in the south. But basis what we've seen in the first 2 months also from our sales, a Chettinad chicken is doing very well even in the north and in Bombay, for example, where consumers are, going by the promise of a superior product, and that experiential thing of trying cuisines which are not really inherent to them only, what they've grown up eating. So I think this whole space of spices is going to really take off. And somebody who takes a lead here, I feel, is really going to expand the market and make this a huge market in times to come.
What kind of other categories are you thinking about? Like for India,
Yeah.
there has been a lot of things, like especially with Gen Zs, ready to eat rice bowls and everything are in trend, if we can say. So is India thinking something about like that?
Yeah. I think, Antara, I mean, if what we've been able to define for ourselves in terms of our journey of expansion, uh, I think there are three, four pillars I'll just call out for you. One is that till now, we were the leaders in the Basmati category. Our vision was to really be the number one in Basmati. I think we've kind of achieved that, right? Two, there is a graduation. You'll see that we have gotten into regional rices now. So a lot of regional cuisines in India, and more not from a cuisine lens, but because rice is center of plate. In South, the center of plate, which is rice, has Sona Masuri, Vada Kolam. In West, you have Vada Kolam. In Bengal, you have Gobindobhog. So all of these, regional variants of rice, which is a much larger market than Basmati, we are extending ourselves to cater to this market. So that's one growth vector that we clearly see for ourselves. Uh, the second piece is really extending the equity of India Gate into staples, which is a more seamless thing to do. So we recently announced the launch of India Gate Poha in the Indian market. So Poha becomes our first product in the staples category, right? Extending the strength of India Gate and trust and legacy play a very important role in the staples category for consumers to pick up the brand. And that's where we are working on a pipeline of products. So Poha happens to be the first of them, and there are more to come in the pipeline. So that's one part of our strategy to extend into newer categories and newer growth engines. Uh, the so first, second is what I just spoke about. Then there is a third, which is extending India Gate into the whole masala mixes space, right? So here, while our initial was a more closer one, which is biryani masalas, but we are really extending this into more Indian cuisines. And I feel as a brand, we are more India. So at this stage, we are right now exploring Indian authentic cuisines across, and then there are 100 in the pipeline if you look at that way in terms of development, right? So from a development standpoint, there's a huge market there for us to tap in the masala space. So we're really going to be extending that journey there. And the last vector for us is the new brand that we've launched in the market called India Gate Uplife. Uh, and that's also stems from the fact that we feel that functional foods, do good health products will have a huge market in the coming decade, right? There is very high adoption that we are seeing for these brands who are in the market, who are offering authentic do good solutions to consumers. So, so all our health products typically are now coming under the India Gate Uplife portfolio. So we launched the blended oils about a year back, year and a half back in the India market, India Gate Uplife. Uh, we have a brown rice portfolio which we now house under India Gate Uplife. We have launched a low GI rice which is now under India Gate Uplife. So there is a stream of products that we are bringing for under India Gate Uplife for the new age Indian consumer, the those who are proactively seeking for a better health lifestyle kind of a need space. So I think that's how we are planning to stagger our entire innovation and new engines of growth strategy at KRBL.
Then what kind of marketing and communication do you have in mind for that? If I talk about the authentic taste with India Gate, the biryani campaign, so it used kind of a ancient touch with a contemporary angle where a blinking guy comes up and gives them the masala. So what was the hook behind that as well? If you can share
Yeah,
with
so I
us.
think Antara, the root behind that essentially is that our range of products need to act like a time machine where they take you back in time to the very, very authentic and the most authentic, cuisines of India. In this case, we used biryani as this, but going forward, that's the vector from a communication lens that we will continue to use, which is more nuanced in terms of the market from which this product is coming, and in time, it's like a timeless thing which takes you back in time. So that's been the core of our communication around biryani masala at this stage. But having said that, I think it's quite a nascent journey right now in terms of consumer communication. It's been more right now go to market with the product and the right channel, getting our pricing right, getting more trials to happen. But I think we've reached a scale where now communication is and awareness are going to really start playing an important role in scaling this product up.
Another marketing initiative by India Gate has been, the presence on Laughter Shelf.
Yeah.
So, India Gate already has that brand recall. So, what kind of brand objectives did you think of when
Sure.
going on a platform like that? Because reality shows give that reach and visibility, of course, but I guess India Gate is already very up. What other objectives that you have in mind?
Yeah, yeah. No, I think Antara, as a brand in the last couple of years, we've been investing significantly in improving our top of mind and brand equity scores, right? We onboarded Mr. Bachchan, right, largely to, drive some of those metrics. And obviously, with our larger agenda of behavior change, we had Mr. Bachchan. So I think with whatever we've done with Mr. Bachchan and our whole media strategy, I think we've seen a significant improvement in the last couple of years on top of mind. We always feel that as a leader in the category, in terms of top of mind, we should be distinctly superior to anybody else in the category, and that's something that we have been working on. And I think Laughter Chef, in terms of our media strategy, somewhere dovetails into that objective. Uh, uh, One from a fitment standpoint and one from a media performance standpoint too. See, from a media performance standpoint, I think it's been doing very well in terms of garnering, TVRs, at the top end of the spectrum within the GEC performance. Secondly, is also the seamless way we are able to integrate our product, because it's at the end of the day a cookery show with a very interesting twist, which is about comedy and humor. I think in India, what we have seen is culinary shows standalone have not been able to garner reach. And we've seen that while it's done well globally, but not in India. And this is a format which has been doing well. So I think we've been taking this property now for the last couple of years, and we're planning to build this consistently as an association so that we are able to really achieve our brand Toma metrics in the long run. So, and it's been doing well for us till now, but we keep reevaluating it as it goes on. So, yeah.
As you said, it's doing well. If you can help us with any kind of a metric, that how has it helped in a business
Yeah.
impact or a sales growth?
Yeah, yeah. So I think from a core market that it reaches, we have seen our top of mind scores go up by about 500 basis points, and we're closely monitoring it. I'm not saying that that's the only thing that has kind of delivered that, but between looking at the kind of assessment and when we've done our brand tracks, it seems that this show has been delivering very well for us.
So, Uh, so the next question would be about, there's a growing pressure on marketers to justify every marketing rupee, and they have to think and rethink before, investing in something. So how
Hmm.
do you balance long-term brand building investments with performance-led marketing initiatives, and like which one delivers, of course, that delivers immediate and measurable results? So which one is prioritized more at the organization?
Sure, sure. See, Antara, at KRBL and India Gate, one of the things that we're absolutely clear about as a marketing function is that all our brand investments are largely, I would say, driven towards long-term brand objectives, right? Um, and I think therein a 70-30 mix is what we typically look at, where 70% does go into long-term brand building and brand metrics, whereas the 30% goes into pure play performance, this thing. Having said that, even for that 70%, I think the marketers are all under tremendous pressure. One, with that 70%, where do I invest? Because the choice of media is growing by the day, right? So making that choice is becoming increasingly difficult, and I would say complex, because there are too many moving parts, and attribution to a single medium and a choice of medium is always very difficult. And hence, I always believe that there is no playbook there, really. There are category nuances, there are brand objective nuances that need to be factored in. We continue to do that. The 30% that goes into performance is largely very, very clearly plowed in to deliver certain numbers. Yeah. And it is again on that piece, it's monitored purely on the performance, right? The ROAS metrics and how we are able to really lead to conversion. So 70-30 is typically how we keep it. None of our objectives are very short term, but that 30% today is required to do business on certain channels. So we definitely do invest, in building our leadership on those channels with that 30%. So that's how very clearly we define it for ourselves.
So lastly, we are living in a very evolving landscape when it comes to marketing. So, what do you think is the biggest challenge and opportunity for an established brand like India Gate in the next few years?
That's a good question. I think when I look at it from a challenge point of view, I somewhere go back to this whole point that it's a low involvement, undifferentiated category. Therein, to create a brand is difficult. And brand, when I say, is not just staying top of mind, because that top of mind can always be disrupted by a disruptive player. Somebody shoves in more dollars, can outshout you, and then in the long run, if they do it consistently, a brand is built on what it is able to create in the consumer's mind in terms of associations. I think that to me is the biggest challenge in the category, I feel. While we have a playbook in place, but I think that's a challenge that we would really want to take up. The second piece, and I look at it more as an opportunity than a challenge, is the ability of the ecosystem now to give marketers multiple arms and legs in terms of choices to make of media, right? Uh, and some look at it as a complex situation to be in, but I feel it's also a huge opportunity where today the media landscape is offering us the opportunity to choose which consumer to talk to, uh, choose very, very sharply markets, cohorts, consumer cohorts. So I think, and this is going to keep expanding, right? What I'm talking today may have much more nuances 3 months down the line, but I'm just saying that as a marketer, it's a huge opportunity for us to explore because uh, then I can be surer of the dollar that I've spent and what really I'm intending to achieve and maybe measure it even more sharply, right, in terms of what it is giving me. So that I see in the coming world of marketing to be a very big opportunity for all of us marketers to really look up to.